2026 Early Connections Conference, Action, presented by the Van Saun Foundation. The title of this presentation is Bridging the Gap Between Home and School.
Thank you. Today, I'll be giving a presentation on bridging the gap between home and school. Today, I hope to cover topics that include calendar systems for home, self-advocacy at home, social stories, a parent toolbox, and I'll start with my why. So when talking about this topic of bridging the gap, I like to share my why I'm so passionate about bridging that gap between home and school. It starts with my cousin Timmy. Shortly after he was born, he was diagnosed with Charge syndrome. The photo on the screen is of my cousin Timmy and I here at Perkins for a 4th of July celebration. He's wearing a red t-shirt, a green baseball cap, and sitting in his stroller, and I'm smiling next to him wearing a red, white, and blue crown. So Timmy has been my inspiration for everything that I do, including getting a job here at Perkins. Before working here, I babysat Timmy, as older cousins often do. When I would go out with Timmy, we would try and go visit our grandparents, maybe go to the playground, or I would take him on a Target run. But even though I would sign to him exactly what we were doing and use the modality of communication that he used at home, we still had those difficulties with communication breakdown. When we were leaving the store and I signed to him, it was time to go home. It just wasn't clicking, and he got really upset and he was frustrated, and it made that transition quite difficult. Fast forward to a few years later, I landed a teaching assistant job here at Perkins in the deafblind school in a classroom that just happened to be right next door to my cousin Timmy. And it blew me away to see that he was using picture symbols and photographs of different objects to help him communicate, along with the sign language and the gestures and the pointing. And he followed those directions and he didn't have as much frustration. So I thought, maybe this is something that I can do. So I just used some cardstock, two-faced tape, and I did a good old-fashioned Google search of those images that I saw him using. And I just made some simple sentence strips that said, go grandma and grandpa, go home, go playground. And I signed it to him and I showed him those pictures, and he held on to those cards when we were in the car, and he was just so happy. And it made the world of difference in our transitions and our trips out into the community. And it just made our time together so much more enjoyable because I wasn't on edge the whole time thinking, what am I missing? How am I not communicating this message clearly enough? And he was happy because he knew exactly what we were doing and what was going to be happening next. So my hope is that this presentation can help you to empower yourselves, to empower the families that you work with, to bridge that gap between home and school for the betterment of the children that you work with. So we'll start with calendar systems for home. So why are calendar systems so important? Because they provide information about a child's day. It provides structure, predictability, reassurance to a child about what will happen. Calendar systems help to ease anxiety. They help when there's a change to the typical schedule of the day, and it helps to reinforce math and literacy concepts. So when we're thinking about a calendar system, that's something that you and I use every single day. And it's not something that when you're at your job, you have access to your calendar, and when you clock out, you have no idea what you're doing the next day. We all have it on our phone. It's something we have access to constantly. So we know what that information is. So you have that ease of anxiety of, I know I have this meeting the next day, and okay, that big meeting that I'm nervous about isn't until Friday, so I don't need to worry about it. It's the same thing for our students. They need that sense of what is happening, what can be expected. So when I talk about calendar systems for home, I like to reinforce that it does not have to be the same exact thing as the child is using at school. Home and school are different, so the calendar systems can be different. As long as your child's mode of communication and literacy are both being used, then you can make any of those changes that work for home. So if your child is using photographs, doesn't matter if they're shown in a different way or it's not presented laminated with pretty borders like it might be at school, it just has to convey the message. So the picture on the screen are the Mayor Johnson symbols for home and school with an equal sign and a red line going through it to represent that they don't need to be the same. So calendar systems at school, they're highly structured with a robust curriculum, and they really target those objectives that the students are working on. You can see that there's a lot of information on these different calendar systems. One of them has an image with time for in the green hands, and then what the class is, and then each page in that binder has a different schedule activity. The one on the top corner has a variety of different partial object symbols, and it displays the entirety of the day. And the one in the bottom corner has two parts of a schedule, and they're in two half boxes to represent what is happening first and what is happening next. For home schedules, they're still going to provide structure, but you're going to think more about those activities of daily living, and they're going to be more home routine based. And it has to be something that works for the family, less formal, but still organized. And the picture we have here on screen is a student was working on transitioning from whole objects to photographs. So we were able to send those photographs home with the family, and they were able to make their own version of a slant board. And you can see that there's a white line separating each of the pictures. They just used some duct tape to indicate that those were different parts of the board to indicate different parts of the schedule. Some other examples of calendar systems that I've done at home are having just a simple 1, 2, 3 in the 3 images next to it: schedule, breakfast, and brush teeth. This schedule is inside one of those clear plastic sleeves. So when the child was done with the first step, they used a dry erase marker and they crossed it off. And then this can be reused over and over again. So you're not worried about having to laminate something or figure out the Velcro. This sleeve right here is something that can be washed off and you can put any worksheet inside. The one in the middle is 2 containers that you could find at any store. And there's a piece of green cloth to indicate the item that they're using now, which is the cup that might represent mealtime. And the one next to it has a red piece of cloth to indicate when it's finished. And again, these are things you can pick up at the craft store and use any whole object or partial object that you're working on with your child at home and use that here. And then the last one is just printing out some of the Mayor Johnson symbols for different activities. So brushing your teeth, breakfast, brushing hair. And as you can see in this example, they're not cut very neatly, as a teacher might want to sit down and do. And that doesn't matter, because regardless of if it's a straight line at the top or not, it still says brush teeth and it has the picture, and the student still understands that message. And simply just moving it with the piece of tape to the top and what it's time for, and when it's done, it's removed. I like to share that sometimes a calendar system can be easy as creating a to-do list on a piece of paper when you're on the go. And the example that I love to share with this is I had a student who had just recently come back to school after having to go to the doctor to have his ears looked at. And he did not want anyone touching his ears. And lucky me got to tell him we were going to low vision, going to see another doctor. So we got down to the low vision appointment and he was very nervous. And even though his schedule said first doctor, then iPad, that wasn't enough information for him. So on the fly, I had to think of a schedule system and a communication system that was going to help him in the moment. So I asked the doctor, how many things are we going to do? And he told me we're going to do 7. And I said, can you promise me no more? And he said, yes, only 7. So I just took a scrap piece of paper, and because my student could read print, I wrote 1 through 7 on the page, and I wrote eyes 7 times. And after everything that the doctor did and that was finished, we crossed it off. My student gave me a big thumbs up because he knew we just finished 1 eyes. He signed no ears, and I said, you're right, eyes again. And we went through the whole list. And again, it was just something that I made with a scrap piece of paper in the office in the moment. Wasn't pretty, but it served its purpose. It reduced the anxiety. It gave him information about exactly what he was going to anticipate during this activity, and it helped him through something that could oftentimes be challenging. So I figured I've had some time to do this presentation with other groups, and I would just talk about some frequently asked questions about calendar systems now. So one of the most popular questions that I get is, where should this calendar system live when you're at home? So every home is different, and keeping the calendar system in a central location where it can be easily accessed is best. And that's going to be different for everyone. Maybe it's the kitchen, maybe it's the living room. And if the schedule system is portable, then maybe it can be carried around with you and the child. But maybe you have a little one that's set up in the bathroom for different bathroom routines that's on a flip card, and you keep that there. And maybe at mealtime, you have one that sits on the dining room table and you keep that there. It's really anything that makes it easier for you as the parent. Because when we're at school, there's a team of us who are doing this all together. I might forget the schedule system when I go to lunch, but I can ask the staff who's next to me to run back to the classroom to get that schedule system and bring it. Sometimes it's just mom and dad or just one or the other. So whatever makes it easier for you in the home is going to be what's best. The next question I often get is, how do I know what objects to use if it's something that only happens at home? So when we're thinking about picking objects for symbols, we need to think about the child's experience. What are they touching? What are they seeing? What are they hearing? We don't want to interpret our own experiences with those activities. We want to make sure that we're using the child's lens during that activity. So maybe instead of using a fork or a spoon to represent mealtime, if they're G-tube fed and they're holding the bolus is going to be what you're using for your symbol for a mealtime. When you're going out in the car, they're not turning the car on, hopefully, with the car key. So the car key might not be the best symbol, but maybe it's part of that seatbelt, because when you buckle them in, that's what they're feeling. That's what they're coming into contact with. Or a washcloth for bath time. But if you don't know, check in with your child's SLP and school team. They can help you think about this. They can help you think of ways about how we're going to teach the child that this is what the symbol means. And oftentimes we'll find during IEP meetings that these questions will come up, and the SLP and the family will work together so that there can be teachable moments across all settings, so that the child has exposure to it and really understands it. So it's not all on the family to teach them what that symbol means. And how do you get the symbols that you need? Ask your child's teacher to send home a copy of the symbols, or email the symbols so you have them saved on your computer. Empower yourself. Ask your students' teams to send home pictures of the things that they're doing. Ask them to send home the photographs that they're using. Ask them to send home examples of the whole objects that they're using. You are your child's best advocate, and asking the team for this help is not out of the scope and sequence of what we do as educators to help the family. You can also start by saving duplicates of the objects or parts of objects that you're using for symbols to create your own little library of things that you might use. Which brings us to our next topic of self-advocacy at home. So why is self-advocacy so important? It's never too early to teach these self-advocacy skills to our students. Self-advocacy is the ability to understand, assert, and communicate your needs and preferences. And this really helps children to express if they enjoy an activity and they want to continue doing that activity that they're enjoying. If they have a food preference, when something feels uncomfortable, and any of their feelings. Teaching child self-advocacy skills help them to feel empowered. A lot of times when we are seeing a student maybe feeling a certain way through our eyes, we're assuming a feeling for them. We want to be able to teach them how to advocate and say, you know what, maybe I'm not mad, I'm actually uncomfortable. Or maybe I'm not mad, I'm actually hungry. We want to teach them these self-advocacy skills so we're not asserting and telling them how we think they feel, but instead they can tell us how they feel. Some of those ways they can do that at home is using a switch. An example of this is if the child is doing an independent routine, they can use a switch that you can record and they can hit the switch and it might say, I need help or that I'm finished. You can look online and you can find game show buzzers that you can record your own message onto. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, but you can record a message and the child will be able to hit that switch when they need help or when they want to let you know they want something different. Simple communication boards. So providing communication boards around the home environment can increase chances for your child to advocate for themselves independently and spontaneously. So this is just an example of a communication board that has 6 symbols on it: more, finished, help, yes, no, and bathroom. This one might be a quick reference guide. And this can still be used if your child is using an AAC device. Sometimes when a child is in a heightened state, if they're feeling really frustrated or they're really sad, that's not the best time to say, okay, we're going to navigate through the communication device. We want to give them something that they can point to and get an immediate response to. And that's why having these communication boards can be so helpful. Okay, so the next one has 4 emotions. We have happy, sad, mad, and tired. So some of the recommended places to have communication and emotion boards might be at the meal table, bathroom, bedroom, play area, or any frequently used areas of the home. I've even seen some parents have these cut out individually and they put a little key ring through it and they carry it with them. So if their child's feeling a certain way, no matter where they are, they can pull it out and they can go through that set of cards and ask them what they need, how are they feeling, do you need the bathroom, and just a simple set of communication cards that are really easy to go through. And then when that child has what they want, that's when you can go to the communication device and say, oh, so before you were mad, and we can practice that skill of going through their device so that they can practice saying how they feel. Another way to have some self-advocacy around the house is labeling things, having symbols around the house to help them take ownership and to show where they need things. So the first picture is a set of 3 drawers and it has 3 Mayor Johnson symbols for different items of clothing. This is going to help your child to be able to locate where their clothing is. Maybe they're going to help and put things away, or maybe they're feeling uncomfortable in the shirt that you picked out and they don't know how to express that. So now they know where those clothing items live. They can go back over, open the drawer, and pick one that they might feel more comfortable in. But also labeling things around the house is a great way to work on those vocabulary skills and increase language. Next is social stories. So social stories is a term coined by Carol Gray, and they're short descriptive narrative designed to fill in gaps in social understandings with clear, reassuring information. Their goal is to explain expectations in a gentle, predictable way. These stories break down social situations, answering the basic questions of who, what, where, when, why, through both text and visuals. And they model those social norms and context clues in a way that it's easy for learners to grasp, and it gives them information that they might not pick up on incidentally in that moment. So social stories are a great way for your child to prepare for things like a special event, a change in routines, doctor's appointments, difficult transitions, or how to cope with feelings. So the image on screen is an example from a social story about how to cope with feelings. It says, it's okay to feel frustrated, but I need to stop and calm down. The next page has a image of a school building, and it says, today I am going to school. So things to include when creating a social story. What is going to happen? The biggest thing about a new opportunity and a new experience is the anxiety about not knowing what am I going to do and what is going to happen. So what will you do there? Where is it going to take place? I think for us, if we talk about we're going to go to a birthday party for, and we give the child's name, they don't understand that that could mean their house. That could mean at the trampoline park. We need to be very specific because they might not have that previous knowledge of what it means to go to a birthday party. Who will be there? Giving them that information of others that they might expect to see. So you can let them know you're going to see your family members or you're going to see your friends, or maybe you have to let them know that you're going to meet new people. This is going to be an opportunity where you'll see new people that will hopefully become friends, and giving them that information can help to reduce the anxiety. What is the child's role and what is the expectation? This is a big one because if they've never had this experience, they're really not sure what they're doing there. You might let them know that you're going to a birthday party. And when you go there, you are going to sing happy birthday to your friend. You are going to watch them open a present. Because if they have their own idea of what a birthday is, and their only experiences of a birthday is that I receive presents, I open those presents, and those are mine, there might be some confusion when they're going to someone else's birthday. So clearly explaining in that social story that you are giving the present to your friend. Your friend is going to open it, and that gift belongs to your friend is really important because those things, if you don't have the experience, it's not intuitive. And then adding those photos to go with the story if you have them. If you know you're going to a new place, maybe you take photographs of that place from the internet. I recently just went to Legoland with my own children, and to get them ready for that experience because they didn't know what to expect, we looked on the website and we looked at those pictures and we talked about it together. So just going onto a website if there's one available, or looking into it and researching, or if you're going to a family member's house, calling them up and saying, hey, this is going to be our first time visiting your home. Do you mind taking a photograph of the front of your house, of the living room, of the room that my child will be staying in, so that they can preview those photos ahead of time? It might be really helpful for them to have a better understanding of what is happening when we share this social story. So of course, I'm not going to share all of this without giving you some information for a parent toolbox to use at home. So some of the things that I have found parents share that have been the most useful when creating these at home are having a laminator. It helps to create materials that are a little bit more durable. Velcro stickers are so much better than a strip of Velcro. It's easier just to peel and stick it on instead of having to cut it and ruin a pair of your good scissors. The last image in the top row are those dry erase pouches that I was speaking about before. Those are great because you can just put in a schedule page that you have printed. They can cross it out. If something changes, you can write right on it, and then you can take that out and reuse it again. The bottom is a visual timer. That's something to help within the routines that we spoke about. The middle photograph is some of those switches. So again, you might be able to talk to your speech and language pathologist about different switches your child is using, but you also might be able to find those ones that you can program yourself that are made for a game that you can have available in the house. And then a hot glue gun. For anyone who was at mine and Neha's training yesterday, a hot glue gun is essential when you're making different symbols and you want to make sure that they are durable. Other art supplies can be found at any craft store. We oftentimes use a lot of black construction paper or cardstock for high contrast, stickers to go on token boards, different color masking tape to make lines on a scheduled board, like we saw the white duct tape on the one earlier, and then whiteboard markers and an eraser. And then when you download the presentation, these are just examples of some of the different communication boards that I have found to be most useful with my families that we've used. So the first one is the emotions: happy, sad, mad, and tired. Then we have one that's a little bit more complex that has an array of 8. And again, one thing that we spoke about yesterday in the symbol making training is really looking at these pictures to make sure that they are going to be ones that are appropriate for your child. So if your child isn't able to tell the difference between the image for silly and the image for sad, then maybe you don't include them on the same array of photographs. Next, we have some for activities of daily living. Again, we have some activities of daily living and chores, meal times. Again, some for meal times, different places within the house and community. And then we have some verbs. And then the one that we use oftentimes is the more, finished, help, yes, no, and bathroom symbol. Okay. So I can turn it over to you guys for questions.
Have you had success? I know that you did mostly the paper stuff. Have you had success using any apps on an iPad for doing or generating that kind of thing, or paper?
So when we're looking at the different, are you talking about like touch chat? So I haven't had experience using any of the apps. A lot of times if the family is looking to use some sort of technology at home instead of this paper-based, then we'll direct them to their SLP and they can help them with that. This is more thinking about quick, accessible, on the go for those who might not visually be able to access what is on a phone for an app. Thank you.
Hi there. I'm thinking of making like a very simple tactile schedule for my son of who is coming over the course of the day, and what we're doing. So, things like car I can do, but if I say this person is coming and this person is coming, what are the ideas of tactile symbols for people?
Yeah, so what we like to do in the deaf blind school is that every student in preschool is assigned their own unique texture. And then staff who are also working with those students have their own unique texture. And we keep it on the back of our ID badge. So for me, mine was a strip of lace that was often on the bottom of a piece of clothing that I wore that my student had come into contact with. So that is how that one was chosen. But what we like to do is we'll do some direct instruction to teach them that this is the symbol that represents this person. So it's an abstract concept in the sense that it's not a part of the person, but it's a texture that represents who that person is. So, for mom, it might be something that they associate with mom. Maybe it's a piece of material that they only experience at home, and they don't associate that with anything else for a symbol. But as you choose those textures to represent the people, every time you talk about them, have your child touch those symbols and interact with those symbols when the person is with them, have them show them that texture and say, you know, hi, it's so-and-so, and then have them touch that texture so they're understanding that this texture represents who they are. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for attending the 2026 Early Connections Conference. Action. Scan the QR code in the center of the screen for more sessions.